Okay, so this is a pretty obvious keep. This round is relatively simple as well. My opponent probably accidentally F6 their turn. Lovely moto decisions. Just based on the way the rest of the game plays out, I can only assume that it's that, as opposed to them just drawing a bunch of lands in a row. I played the wrong 2-drop. I'll talk about why next turn. So they play their 1 toughness creature. Let's just think about this. If I draw Ulcerate or Forge Devil here, I definitely want to kill their creature. And if I played the Servant instead of the Bloodseeker, I'd be +2 damage. Simple. I'd also have the option of putting this guy in. Instead, I just play my 3-drop. Oh well, rough life. And having the ability, this guy just says haste later, so I should have had it up later. Regardless, it's passed. Opponent slams a Divine Favor, and we start getting to business on a race. I play the 4-drop pretty obviously. Shove in. My opponent follows up with 2 creatures. This one I absolutely have to kill. And again, another turn where I'm like, this turn would be exactly where it comes up, right? Because what I want to do is kill the River Marshal, because I don't want to attack and let him trade the 3-power guy for my 3-power guy. I want to maximize damage output both ways. And I could be attacking with the Servant I've had in play since turn 2, and attacking with my Hasted Bloodseeker for an additional 2 damage. Just throwing that out there. So I kill his guy pre-combat, just as I was talking about, because I don't want to let the trade happen, and just give him all terrible blocks this turn. Servant lands. I have a reasonable block on the Skirmisher. I choose not to block. At the time, I can't really think of exactly why. It was just kind of a thing where, oh, that's what it was. It was the Swift Claw can still hit me once without killing me. That was my logic. As opposed to trading this turn, it's the same either way, actually. So the Swift Claw still takes 2 hits to kill me if I block or I don't block. And that was the logic. So this turn, I draw my card. I'm like, oh, Stoke the Flames. Snap. I get to kill his Gargoyle Sentinel and shove for lethal. Then I'm like, wait a second. What if he has Ephemeral Shields? How do I play around that? Tank, 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 tank. Oh, wait. 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 4 is 10. And game is over. Okay, so another easy keep. Moving along here. Our opponent plays a mountain. What is this nonsense? Proceeds to have basically nothing. We curve out a bit. I opt to play the Carrion Crows instead of getting the 2 damage here, under the basis that I thought the Ulcerate could clear that much damage or more. And potentially... So I was really confused at this the first time I watched this replay, why I'd make this play. But I think the line I was considering was that the Crows is just going to get in for damage anyways. I don't have to Ulcerate this guy because it's not that good. And I can choose to Ulcerate it later when he activates it to give it flying to block the Crows. So I felt like I could get more tempo out of this exchange. Again, nothing. Another mountain. Again, confusing. And equipping with the shield. I'm rewarded by my slow roll of the Ulcerate because I now get to trade a crappy 2-1 for his 3-3. Which I opt to do. Torch Fiend killing his creature. Leaving the shield because my removal doesn't care about it. The 5th land hits. There's no Cone of Flame killing these 2 guys. I extend the 3rd creature and attack for 4. And obviously Cone of Flame hits. I kind of feel like I should have known that it was there. But to be fair, I think in that board state, as my opponent, I might have actually just coned. I guess it's not too threatening of a clock, but oh well. I get 3 for 1, but I immediately have the follow-up guy and the Chieftain. My opponent finally hits the land. Hits 3-1. I hit my 5th land. I opt to not Stab Wound. I'd rather just extend this Vampire than get to use 2 removal spells to clear the guys and getting both creatures on the attack. Then the immediate 3 damage, which doesn't really mess up the clock at all for them. The Sun God comes in after a pump from the Skirmisher and an equip with a shield, which moves back. I draw a Forest, which is probably the best draw in my deck. So, this attack, my opponent has actually no good blocks because of the Chieftain activation. The block that my opponent does make is Skirmisher on the Chieftain. I opt to not Ulcerate because I just want to kill the creature. Like, I can just pump my Chieftain and use my onboard trick and leave up my removal spells to answer anything threatening. And I don't feel like I'm necessarily in too big of a scenario, especially because, let's look at this math real fast. So I'm not required to assign the damage to the skirmisher to kill it through the shield prevention. So I can just assign 4 damage to him from the chieftain, 4 damage from the vampire, put him to 4 with the stoke in hand. And I had to do some math here. So there's 1 card in his hand. He has 7 mana. This kills him through a Mass Calcify, which was great. But the other thing is that if the 2 cards are the 2 biggest damage outputs that are possible, which is, if I remember correctly, it was Sanctified Charge plus Lightning Strike was the most damage I could figure out. I get to ulcerate the Swift Claw, so I take 3, 4 here, 4 here, so that's another 8, 11, and then 3 from the Strike, which is 14. I couldn't figure out a way I would die in the next attack. So, opponent goes to 4, plays Pilgrim, plays a Seraph. I think that, and there's the raise on this guy, I think that my opponent definitely made a mistake here. If my opponent doesn't play the Pilgrim, if my 3 cards are nothing, they'll have the Skirmisher and the 3/1 untapped, along with the Seraph, which is a 4/4. I guess, okay, never mind. So my original thought was that the 4/4... So first of all, my opponent's just dead on board in this board state. Let's just clear that out of the way. I have 2 4-power attackers. Game's over. And then if the so my thought was that if you don't play the Pilgrim, you have all these creatures to block with. My opponent doesn't have to tap the River Marshal, which was my original thought. But if I pay the life on the Vampire, my opponent has to block with a 4 toughness Seraph on my Vampire, or 4/4 Seraph on my Vampire that pumps to a 6/7 or 6/5. So that ends horribly, and then this block over here doesn't end well with the Chieftain either. So, there's basically not a lot of good options, but this one can't be the right one because my opponent's on board dead. I missed that, and I just cast Stoke the Flames because, again, it doesn't matter. The game ends.